John 17:14-16. The apostles and other disciples are in the world, human society ruled by Satan, but they must remain separate from it and its badness. How? They must keep themselves holy, set apart to serve God, by applying the truths found in the Hebrew Scriptures and the truths that Jesus concluding prayer in the upper room. John 17:1-26, 280 himself has taught. Jesus prays. Sanctify them by means of the truth. Your word is truth. John 17:17. In time, some of the apostles will write inspired books that will also be part of the truth that can help to sanctify a person. But there will in time be others who will accept the truth. Jesus thus prays not concerning these only those who are there, but also concerning those putting faith in him through their word. What does Jesus request for all of them? That they may all be one, just as you, Father, are in union with me and I am in union with you, that they also may be in union with us. John 17:20-21. Jesus and his Father are not literally one person. They are one in that they are in agreement on all things. Jesus prays that his followers enjoy this same oneness. Shortly before this, Jesus had told Peter and the others that he was going his way to prepare a place for them, meaning a place in heaven. John 14:2-3. Jesus now returns to that idea in prayer. Father, I want those whom you have given me to be with me where I am, in order that they may look upon my glory that you have given me, because you loved me before the founding of the world. John 17:24. He thus confirms that long ago, before Adam and Eve conceived offspring, God loved his only begotten Son, who became Jesus Christ. Concluding his prayer, Jesus re-emphasizes both his Father's name and God's love for the apostles and for others who will yet accept the truth, saying, I have made your name known to them and will make it known, so that the love with which you loved me may be in them and I in union with them. John 17:26. The result of coming to know God and his Son, the oneness of Jehovah, Jesus, and the disciples. What does coming to know God and his Son mean? In what ways has Jesus made God's name manifest? How are God, his Son, and all true worshippers one? 122-281. Jesus finishes praying with his faithful apostles. Then, after singing praises, they go out to the Mount of Olives. Mark 14:26. They head eastward to a garden called Gethsemane, where Jesus is accustomed to going. Once they arrive at this pleasant spot among the olive trees, Jesus leaves 8 of the apostles behind. Perhaps they remain near the garden's entrance, for he tells them, sit down here while I go over there and pray. Taking along 3 apostles, Peter, James, and John, Jesus goes farther into the garden. He becomes greatly troubled and tells the 3, I am deeply grieved, even to death. Stay here and keep on the watch with me. Matthew 26:36-38. Going some distance away from them, Jesus falls to the ground and begins praying. What is he praying to God about at this intense moment? He prays, Father, all things are possible for you. Remove this cup from me. Yet, not what I want, but what you want. Mark 14:35-36. What does he mean? Is he backing away from his role as ransomer? No. Jesus has observed from heaven the extreme suffering of others put to death by the Romans. Now as a human, who has tender feelings and who can feel pain, Jesus is not looking forward to what awaits him. More important, though, he is in agony because he senses that his dying like a despicable criminal might bring reproach on his Father's name. In a few hours, he will be hanged on a stake as if he were a blasphemer against God. After praying at length, Jesus returns and finds the 3 apostles sleeping. He says to Peter, could you not so much as keep on the watch for 1 hour with me? Keep on the watch and pray continually, so that you may not enter into temptation. Jesus realizes that the apostles too have been under stress, and it is late. He adds, the spirit, of course, is eager, but the flesh is weak. Matthew 26:40-41. Then Jesus goes off a second time and asks that God remove from him this cup. On returning, he once again finds the three apostles asleep, when they should have been praying that they not enter into temptation. When Jesus speaks to them, they do not know what to answer him. Mark 14. 40. A third time Jesus goes off, and he bends down on his knees to pray. Jesus is deeply concerned about the reproach that his death as a criminal will bring on his Father's name. Jehovah is hearing his son's prayers, though, and at one point God sends an angel to strengthen him. Even so, Jesus does not stop supplicating his Father, but he keeps praying more earnestly. The emotional stress is enormous. What a weight is on Jesus' shoulders. His own eternal life and that of believing praying weren't deeply grieved. Matthew 26. 30, 36-46 Mark 14. 26, 32-42 Luke 22. 39-46 John 18. 1. His sweat is as drops of blood. Physician Luke does not explain how Jesus' sweat became as drops of blood. Luke 22. 44. Luke may have been speaking illustratively, that the sweat resembled blood dripping from the wound. An alternate idea was offered by Dr. William D. Edwards in the Journal of the American Medical Association JAMA. Although this is a very rare phenomenon, bloody sweat hematidrosis may occur in highly emotional states. As a result of hemorrhage into the sweat glands, the skin becomes fragile and tender. 282. Humans is at stake. In fact, his sweat becomes as drops of blood falling to the ground. Luke 22. 44. When Jesus returns the third time to his apostles, he again finds them sleeping. At such a time as this, he says, "You are sleeping and resting. Look. The hour has drawn near for the Son of Man to be betrayed into the hands of sinners. Get up, let us go. Look. My betrayer has drawn near." Matthew 26. 45, 46. Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. His sweat is as drops of blood after leaving the upper room. Where does Jesus lead the apostles? What are three apostles doing while Jesus prays? That Jesus' sweat becomes as drops of blood indicates what about his feelings? 123, 283. It is well past midnight. The priests have agreed to pay Judas 30 pieces of silver to betray Jesus. So Judas leads a large crowd of chief priests and Pharisees, seeking to find Jesus. They are accompanied by a detachment of armed Roman soldiers with a military commander. Evidently, when Jesus dismissed him from the Passover meal, Judas went directly to the chief priests. John 13. 27. They assembled their own officers as well as a band of soldiers. Judas may have led them first to the room where Jesus and his apostles had celebrated the Passover. But now the mob has crossed the Kidron Valley and is headed for the garden. In addition to weapons, they are carrying lamps and torches, determined to find Jesus. As Judas leads the procession up the Mount of Olives, he feels sure that he knows where to find Jesus. During the past week, as Jesus and the apostles traveled back and forth between Bethany and Jerusalem, they often stopped in the Garden of Gethsemane. But now it is night, and Jesus may be in the shadows of the olive trees in the garden. So how will the soldiers, who may not have seen Jesus before, be able to identify him? To help them, Judas will provide a sign. He says, "Whoever it is I kiss, he is the one. Take him into custody, and lead him away under guard." Mark 14. 44. Leading the crowd into the garden, Judas sees Jesus with his apostles and goes straight up to him. "Greetings, Rabbi," Judas says, and he kisses Jesus very tenderly. "Fellow, for what purpose are you present?" Jesus responds. Matthew 26. 49, 50. Answering his own question, Jesus says, "Judas, are you betraying the Son of Man with a kiss?" Luke 22. 48. But that is enough of his betrayer. Jesus now steps into the light of the torches and lamps and asks, "Whom are you looking for?" From the mob comes the answer, "Jesus the Nazarene." Jesus courageously says, "I am he." John 18. 4, 5. And not knowing what to expect, the men fall to the ground. Rather than seizing that moment to flee into the night, Jesus again asks whom they are seeking. When they again say, Jesus the Nazarene, he calmly continues, I told you that I am he. So if you are looking for me, let these men go. Even at this crucial moment, Jesus recalls what he said earlier, that he would not lose a single one. John 6. 39. 17. 12 Jesus has kept his faithful apostles, and not one has been lost except the son of destruction, Judas. John 18. 7-9 Thus he now asks that his loyal followers be let go. As the soldiers stand and move toward Jesus, the apostles realize what is happening. Lord, should we strike with the sword? They ask. Luke 22. 49 Before Jesus can reply, Peter wields one of the two swords that the apostles have at hand. He attacks Malchus, a slave of the high priest, cutting off his right ear. Jesus touches the ear of Malchus, healing a wound. He then teaches an important lesson, commanding Peter, return your sword to its place, for all those who take up the sword will perish by the sword. Jesus is willing to be arrested, for he explains, how would the scriptures be fulfilled that say it must take place this way? Matthew 26. 52, 54 He adds, should I not drink the cup that the Father has given me? John 18. 11 Jesus agrees with God's will for him, even to the point of dying. Jesus asks the crowd, did you come out to arrest me with swords and clubs as against a Christ who's betrayed and arrested? Matthew 26. 47-56 Mark 14. 43-52 Luke 22. 47-53 John 18. 2-12, 284 Robber. Day after day I used to sit in the temple teaching, and yet you did not take me into custody. But all of this has taken place for the writings of the prophets to be fulfilled. Matthew 26. 55, 56. The soldier band, the military commander, and the officers of the Jews seize Jesus and bind him. Seeing this, the apostles flee. However, a certain young man, perhaps the disciple Mark, remains among the crowd so as to follow Jesus. Mark 14. 51 This young man is recognized, and the crowd attempts to seize him, which forces him to leave behind his linen garment as he gets away. Judas betrays Jesus in the garden. Peter cuts off the man's ear. Jesus is arrested. Why does Judas look for Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane? Trying to defend Jesus, what does Peter do? But what does Jesus say about this? How does Jesus reveal that he is in agreement with God's will for him? When the apostles abandon Jesus, who remains, and what happens then? 124, 285 Once Jesus is bound like a common criminal, he is led to Annas, who was the high priest when young Jesus amazed the teachers at the temple. Luke 2. 42, 47 Some of Annas' sons later served as high priest, and now his son-in-law Caiaphas holds that position. While Jesus is at the home of Annas, Caiaphas has time to assemble the Sanhedrin. That court of 71 members includes the high priest and others who had held that office. Annas questions Jesus about his disciples and about his teaching. Jesus replies simply, I have spoken to the world publicly. I always taught in a synagogue and in the temple, where all the Jews come together, and I said nothing in secret. Why do you question me? Question those who have heard what I told them. John 18. 19-21. An officer standing there slaps Jesus in the face and says reprovingly, Is that the way you answer the chief priest? But Jesus, knowing that he has done no wrong, responds, If I said something wrong, bear witness about the wrong. But if what I said was right, why do you hit me? John 18. 22, 23 Annas then has Jesus taken away to his son-in-law Caiaphas. By now those composing the whole Sanhedrin, the current high priest, the elders of the Jesus is taken to Annas, then to Caiaphas. Matthew 26. 57-68 Mark 14. 53-65 Luke 22. 54, 63-65 John 18. 13, 14, 19-24 People, and the scribes, have assembled. They meet at the home of Caiaphas. It is illegal to hold such a trial on the night of Passover, But this does not deter them from pursuing their wicked purpose.